Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode of House of Tallysha. With me, Tallysha-Soares, to talk to you about David Attenborough. If you follow House of Tallysha, if you follow my social media, you know that David Attenborough is my major intellectual reference. And one of the latest books, actually the latest book I've read of him is this one, Journeys to the Other Side of the World, Further Adventures of a Young Naturalist. I actually have on my nightstand the first on this series, The Adventures of a Young Naturalist. And what is this book? So David Attenborough has written an immense output of books about nature and the wonders of the natural world. He has also written his biography, Life on Air, and he has put into writing a kind of a diary or an account of his travels around the world as the world's leading traveler or the most traveled person in the history of man. And this book, The Journeys to the Other Side of the World, is about his journeys to places like Papua New Guinea or Tonga and Fiji or Madagascar. Actually, this book was published for the first time in 1981 and was called Journeys to the Past, Travels in New Guinea, Madagascar and the Northern Territory of Australia. And this was republished in 2018 with this rewritten title or with this rearranged title. And it is the account of Sir David to these further outreaches of the world while he was filming documentaries such as Zoo Quest. He actually refers that from 1954 to 1964 he traveled the world filming this kind of paterfamilias of the world documentary, Zoo Quest. And I'd like to read to you some excerpts of this book because Sir David is actually taking us to the past. He is taking us to a world that is no longer this contemporary world that we live in. As he says, throughout his long career of over 60 years on air, he has witnessed the impacts of man over the planet, climate change and so on, the increase in population. He has witnessed so much transformation that the world about which he wrote in the 1950s and 1960s is no longer the contemporary world. And Sir David is a fascinating person. He is a fascinating character. He's like this last adventure hero in a way. And when I read a book like Journeys to the Other Side of the World, I come across a figure that reminisces those adventurers of the adventure novel of the 19th century or Indiana Jones, of which I have also made an episode here for House of Tallysha. He was actually a man that encountered, or was the first European to encounter, unknown tribes in New Guinea, for example. And the first excerpt that I would like to read to you is actually about this first encounter between a Westerner, a European, in this case Sir David, and an unknown or lost tribe in the forests of Papua New Guinea. And in a way, David Attenborough resembles Henry Morton Stanley and his quest in Africa for Dr. Livingstone and that famous sentence in mid-Africa, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. So let me read to you the account of this first encounter between the European Sir David and a lost, unknown tribe in Papua New Guinea, who were famous for being cannibals. And writes Sir David, "Well, cannibals or not," I replied with slightly forced gaiety, "I think they are over there waiting for us." Suddenly, with ear-splitting yells, a horde of men leaped from behind the rocks and rushed towards us, brandishing knives and axes. My only conscious thought was that I must urgently convince them that we were friendly. With my heart banging against my ribs, I walked towards them and extended my right hand. My meager vocabulary of pidgin deserted me, and, rather to my surprise, I heard myself saying loudly, in what sounded like absurdly cultured tones, "Good afternoon." So all that Sir David had to say to this horde of people coming in his direction, coming towards him, was a very polite "good afternoon." Isn't this so exciting, so appealing, so wonderful? And another excerpt that I would like to write to you is not as humoured as this last one. It's actually Sir David contemplating the modern world in Tonga and saying how different we are in our hyper-civilization when compared to the Tongans, the inhabitants of Tonga. And so this is his reflection. Had we found the people of paradise? Few of the Europeans we met in Tonga would have said so. To them, the island was a backwater where nothing ever happened, and they were bored. Ships only called at very long intervals, so that you could not always get exactly what you wanted in the island's few shops, and post from the outside world was often intolerably delayed. But perhaps their reactions were understandable, for they had come to Tonga to deal with matters that were quite foreign to the island's life. With electricity and the telephone service, with engineering and commerce. And they were the prisoners of their own professions, endeavoring to work as though they were part of an industrial community, when in fact they were living among a people to whom time, schedules, ledgers, and the double entry system of accountancy seemed to be among the least important things in life. But I suspect that to the Tongans themselves, their island seemed the nearest approximation to paradise that can be found on earth. It is very fertile. There are always fish to be caught in the lagoon. Each man has a plot of land of his own and can never starve. Life, indeed, is abundantly good. Flowers are beautiful, food sweet tasting, girls pretty, and music beguiling. The day has its duties, but they are not so demanding that there is not ample time to enjoy its many pleasures. Perhaps, if I had stayed longer, I, like the other Europeans on the island, would have become discontented. I longed to find out. And this is so close to home, to our time, to our contemporaneous world. So David is reflecting on a world and a modus vivendi, so a way of life and a lifestyle that is devoid of schedules and all the insane responsibilities that drag us down. So this book is really a call, in a sense, to what the world was and how it is today. And very humanely written and very full of the humor that David is known for, and a humor that makes reading so wonderful, so fulfilling, and so unique. Well, this is a book that I highly recommend, as I recommend all the books by Sir David Attenborough. So, Journeys to the Other Side of the World, a very young David Attenborough on these pages in this book. I am Isabel Tallysha-Soares. A pleasure talking to you, more so if I am talking about Sir David Attenborough. I'll be seeing you next time. I hope you will see me too. If you like this sort of content, subscribe to the channel, leave comments, and I will be seeing you next time.